The shocking truth, understanding God's salvation plan in 30 minutes from Genesis to Apocalypse. The clock struck midnight, but the world spun on, drenched in secrets and shadows. Streets lay hushed, moonlight slicing through the night like a knife. And just outside St. Michael's Cathedral, whispers of the unbelievable slithered through the damp air. Thomas, a mild-mannered gardener, stumbled into the heart of something greater than himself. He always thought he was just digging holes for roses, yet here he was caught in the web of a millennia-old prophecy that twisted and turned like the roots he usually tended to. The first strange element arrived in the shape of an old book, weathered and trembling in the damp grass, its pages fluttering like frightened birds. The Book of Revelations? He mumbled, glancing around as if the very night was watching him. Who could have left it there? A chill raced down his spine. Every corner of the cathedral screamed with histories long buried, stories that clawed for life. Even the gargoyles above seemed to lean in closer, their stone eyes gleaming under the pale light, as if eager to share their ancient knowledge, but it was the sudden, deafening silence that sent his heart into a furious thump. A new heaviness filled the air, like the calm before an impending storm. Not a creature stirred. If he listened hard enough, he could hear his own breath echoing, in and out, louder with each pulse. Then, from the corner of his eye, something moved. A figure cloaked in black, nothing more than a swirl of shadows, slipped between the gravestones. Thomas froze, stomach dropping. Was this another messenger from the beyond? Or was it a warning? His thoughts tangled as he clutched the book tighter. He could almost feel the weight of generations pressing down, a call for salvation that resonated deep within. How could he understand this? Was he chosen for something beyond roses and dirt? Just then, under the glow of a flickering lamp, the word salvation and doom leapt off the pages. Could one be the solution to the other? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Thomas plunged into the text, each line felt like a thunderclap to his senses. The world around him ignited in flashes, fire and fury, love and loss, all intertwined like the roots beneath his feet. He lost track of time, heart racing. What was waiting for him beyond the horizon of these words? With every turn of the page, a more profound mystery unfurled. As the last line drew near, dread settled in his chest. Could he bear the truth? And as he glanced up, the cloaked figure returned, standing right before him, shrouded in darkness. What would they reveal? Would the answer lead to salvation, or ruin? Thomas's heart pounded like a war drum as he faced the cloaked figure. The shroud of shadow seemed to thicken, almost pulsating with anticipation. Was this presence friend or foe? He scanned the darkened face, searching for a hint of intention behind the mere silhouette. Who are you? He stammered, his voice barely piercing the heavy silence that wrapped around them both. The figure did not answer immediately. Instead, they reached into their robe and pulled out a small, shimmering object, something metallic that caught the moonlight in an eerie shimmer. A pendant. A symbol he recognized. It was the very emblem that had adorned the book, the one he was now gripped by, the Book of Revelations. Do you wish to understand? The voice emerged, low and deep, echoing with the weight of centuries. It was both soothing and terrifying, like a lullaby sung by a ghost. Understand what? Thomas replied, his fingers trembling over the book's spine. What is this prophecy? What am I supposed to do? Every moment you breathe, every decision you make, they all ripple across the surface of time, like a stone thrown into a pond. You have stumbled upon more than just a book, you have come face to face with a destiny that has awaited your arrival. A chill crept up Thomas's spine. Destiny? Him? A gardener entangled in some divine purpose? It felt absurd, a twisted fairy tale he had never chosen to be part of. The cloaked figure stepped closer, the shadows forming a cloak of swirling darkness, obscuring their features even more. You are a key, Thomas. Not just a man tending roses, but a vessel of unimaginable power. You hold the fate of many in your hands, salvation for some, doom for others. He felt a lump form in his throat, fear mingling with intrigue. But how? What do I need to do? The figure waved the pendant, and for a heartbeat, Thomas saw images flash before him, visions of chaos, destruction, but also glimmers of hope, of people rising against the tide of despair. Each glimpse struck him like a hammer, pulling at his heart. Seek the three truths, the cloaked figure instructed, their eyes a pair of glowing orbs locking onto his. The first lies within the walls of this cathedral. The second awaits you at the heart of the city. And the third, well, the third already resides within you. Why me? He breathed, desperation clawing at his insides. Why not someone stronger? Strength is a mirage, the figure replied, their voices rising. It is courage, persistence, and the heart that holds true power. Many will test your resolve. The path will not be easy. Just remember, the greater the burden, the greater your salvation. Before Thomas could question further, the figure began to dissolve into the night, his shape melding with the shadows. Go now. Do not delay. Choices will lead to consequences. The clock is ticking. Panic surged through him as he watched the figure vanish, leaving only the faint whisper of their words. Time? He glanced back at the book, clutched tightly like a lifeline. The fabric of his reality was unraveling. Destiny called to him, and he felt the tug on his soul, but where to begin? As Thomas turned to face the colossal cathedral, he felt something shift within him, a flicker of determination sprouting among the dread. He had to know the truths, to confront whatever lay ahead. As he stepped toward the looming doors of St. Michael's Cathedral, another sensation washed over him, something dark, a threat lurking just beyond his sight, waiting for its moment. Was he truly ready for what he was about to uncover? Would the truth he sought lead him toward light, or pull him deeper into the darkness? With every step, the questions multiplied. How much time did he really have left? What other truths awaited him? Distant echoes from within the cathedral beckoned him, mingling with his own racing heart. Thomas pushed against the heavy cathedral doors, the wood creaking like a reluctant old man. The moment he crossed the threshold, a gust of cool air embraced him, almost as if inviting him to step further into the gaping maw of the unknown. Inside, stained glass windows loomed, casting spectral, colorful patterns over the cold stone floor. Each step echoed like a heartbeat in a silent room, sending a shiver up his spine. The scent of incense lingered in the air, thick and perfumed, masking whatever secrets lay waiting in the dark corners of this sacred place. That he hesitated, feeling out of place among the towering pillars that seemed to watch him with silent judgment. Whispers danced through the air, soft murmurs like the rustle of leaves. Heart racing, he pressed on, his steps guided by a strange, magnetic pull towards the altar. What was he seeking? The first truth? His mind churned with questions, thoughts spiraled like autumn leaves caught in a whirlwind. Was it salvation or destruction that lay ahead? And what if he couldn't fulfill this burden he was meant to carry? As he approached the altar, he noticed a flickering light beneath the cloth. Thomas clenched his jaw and reached out, lifting the veil to reveal a large, ornate book, an exact match to the one he had clutched only moments before. This was no mere coincidence, this felt like fate. Just as he was about to grasp the book, a shadow shifted in the corner of his eye. It was a figure, a monk with a shaven head and a presence that seemed to devour light itself. Thomas felt his breath hitch as the monk approached, eyes burning with unsettling intensity. Do you seek the truth? The monk's voice boomed, rich and resonant, echoing throughout the vast chamber. Who are you? Thomas asked, stepping back, feeling exposed like a candle in a storm. I am a steward of this place, and the guardian of its secrets, the monk replied, moving inches from Thomas. The truth you seek has many forms, but only one will reveal your destiny. Thomas swallowed hard, the lump in his throat growing larger. What must I do? You must confront the darkness, he declared. Only then will the first truth unfurl before you. It lies within these walls but demands a sacrifice. A wave of dread washed over him. Sacrifice? A heartbeat echoed in his ears. What kind of sacrifice? The monk stepped aside, revealing a hidden passage behind the altar, shrouded in shadow. Face your fears. Only in the abyss will you find your answer. With trembling hands, Thomas glanced at the dark void that awaited him. Was this the test? His pulse raced louder, suffocating his resolve. But was there any turning back? The promise of understanding beckoned with an allure he couldn't resist, but he had already stepped into the web of destiny. Turning away felt impossible now. Stepping into the passage might uncover the truth he needed, but it could just as easily consume him. With every fiber of his being, Thomas cast one last glance back at the familiar sanctuary of light from the altar. Trepidation coursed through his veins as he plunged into the damp darkness. Each step was heavy, the air thickened, wrapping around him like chains, binding him to the unknown. Whispers surged around him, merging into a cacophony that vibrated through his bones. It was as if the very walls were alive, breathing, and awaiting the events that would unfold, and suddenly, everything froze. An unexpected silence blanketed him, the whispers ceased. Then, he saw a distant flame, illuminating a figure. Not just any figure, but a version of himself, twisting in agony, trapped in an endless loop of despair. Who are you? He choked out, fear ripping through his chest. The figure turned, its face a mirror of torment. You must decide. Embrace the darkness, or face the truth. Thomas stood at the precipice, heart racing, trapped between his past and the truths that awaited him. What choice would he make? And as he considered the path ahead, the shadows shifted ominously, ready to consume him whole. Thomas's heart thundered in his chest as he grappled with the sight of his own tormented figure. It felt as if the shadows themselves were pulling him closer, drawing him into a whirlpool of fear and uncertainty. The cavernous darkness pressed against him, and for a moment, he thought he might drown in it. What does that mean? He stammered, feeling adrenaline coursing through every nerve ending. The flickering flame cast grotesque shapes on the walls, distorting reality itself. You must choose, the doppelganger hissed, voice warped and echoing like a haunted corridor. To embrace the darkness is to accept the despair that has marred your soul, but to face the truth? That might shatter everything you know. Each word felt like a blow, smashing against his resolve. Thomas's mind was racing. Was he really trapped in this loop of dread? Could this distorted version of himself hold the key to understanding the burdens he carried? The ghostly visage pointed a finger. What will you sacrifice, Thomas? What piece of yourself is worth the truth? Visions of his life flashed through his mind, regrets, failures, memories that struck deep. He saw the faces of friends, family, his childhood innocence, all shattering under the weight of gnawing mistakes. Tears pricked at his eyes, blending with the shadows that encased him. Would facing the truth meant leaving those fragments behind? Suddenly, the silence shattered as a rush of panic surged through him. The walls began to pulse, the whispers returning, louder, angrier, a chaotic chorus of doubts threatening to drown him. Choose. Choose. They shouted, unyielding, as the phantom of himself grinned malevolently, twisting in agony. In that moment of crippling uncertainty, an overwhelming clarity pierced through the chaos. I choose to face the truth, Thomas yelled, his voice echoing defiantly. A sudden stillness enveloped the space, as if the entire universe held its breath. But the darkness quivered in response, a low growl reverberating back at him. The flickering flame intensified, illuminating the grotesque figure and turning its expression from torment to fury. You think you can awaken the truth without a price? It bellowed, voice booming in a frenzy that rattled the very foundations of this place. You will not proceed without an offering. Before Thomas could process, tendrils of shadow lunged at him, wrapping around his wrists, binding him tightly. Panic surged through him. A sudden flash of light devoured the shadows, revealing the monk standing at the entrance of the passage, watching with an inscrutable expression. Do not falter now, he urged, stepping closer, the power of his presence pushing back against the darkness. For once you embrace the truth, you must confront the pain that has held you captive. Are you ready? The shadows writhed, desperately trying to pull him back into their depths, but the words of the monk ignited a spark of resistance within him. He felt a rush of energy, as if each heartbeat pushed him closer to liberation. I'm ready, Thomas declared, capturing a breath of courage. An electric charge shot through him, igniting his resolve. He focused on the voice of his true self, the one that had the strength to defy despair. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, writhing, searching for purchase. The anguished figure mirrored his struggle, twisting in a battle to maintain its grip. Then the sacrifice will be your greatest fear. It screamed in a thundering voice, echoing in the chamber as darkness surged towards him with ferocity. The walls began to close in, a suffocating wave threatening to swallow him whole. In the eye of the chaos, he felt it a mere glimmer of hope deep within. What is the greatest fear lurking in your soul? As Thomas fought to remain grounded, the answer began dawning, forcing him to grapple with what he had buried deep for far too long, and just as clarity emerged, a blinding light erupted. What would he uncover as the darkness twisted around him, desperate to reclaim its hold? The blinding light enveloped Thomas, a searing brightness that sent shards of color dancing like shooting stars against the darkness. The shadows screamed louder, shrieking in friction and fury as if the very essence of night despised the intrusion of illumination. As he shielded his eyes, he couldn't help but feel a surge of strength pulsing through him. The light ignited buried courage, glowing fiercely against the dread. Face it. The doppelganger howled, the glee twisted in its features now morphing into frustration. You think you can just break free? You cannot escape the truth. But Thomas stood resolute. The light was not just a refuge, it felt like an awakening. With each pulse, memories rushed into focus. The faces of loved ones flashed before his eyes, his mother's nurturing smile, his brother's laughter shared at childhood adventures, friends whose kindness had once enveloped him like a blanket. These memories fueled him. They were fragments of hope submerged beneath layers of horror and shame. I've felt like a coward, Thomas admitted, the words faltering at first but taking shape amidst the chaos. I've buried my fears. I've let them define me, but that ends now. Thunder roared from the depths, each rumble deeper and darker, as if the world around him anticipated collapse. Yet Thomas felt unyielding, the tides of panic surging but unable to breach the wall of light he had begun to forge. You're an illusion. He screamed at the twisted figure before him, the shadow that taunted his deepest insecurities. You are nothing but a construct of my fear. The echo of those words ricocheted off the walls, and for a fleeting moment, the malevolent grin faltered. He took a cautious step forward, emboldened by his own defiance. Show me my fear, and I will face it. With an ear-splitting screech, the shadows congealed, the air thickening around him, pulsating. Thomas's breath caught in his throat. He was no longer in the cavern, he stood at the precipice of a dark abyss, a swirling void that promised to swallow him whole. From that void, a form began to emerge, a monstrous figure cloaked in tendrils of darkness, morphing with every breath Thomas took. Its eyes glowed like dying embers, piercing through the void, the embodiment of every regret, shame, and fear he had ever felt. This is you. It boomed, a voice aged and twisted. You refuse to acknowledge me. You refuse to accept the truth of your own failures. Thomas's heart raced. Memories of his past mistakes, the people he'd hurt with his selfishness and denial, the times he'd stood still instead of taking risks, all collided in a wave of regret. Panic swelled within him, threatening to break through the wall of light he'd erected. Face me, coward. The figure bellowed, each syllable dripping with disdain, echoing harsh truths that cut like knives. A cold sweat broke out across Thomas's skin, but then, amid the paralyzing fear, a voice resonated in his mind, the voice of his mother, telling him that strength comes from facing the hurt, fighting for a better tomorrow. "You're stronger than this," she'd say, "never forget that." Thomas steadied himself. "No. This ends now." He summoned every ounce of courage, every shred of light within him, and stepped closer to the abyss. "I will not be defined by you. You will not control my story." The entity shrieked, an unholy noise echoing off unseen walls. The shadows whipped around him, and Thomas forced himself to confront the darkness, piercing through the layers of despair. He stretched out a hand, a trembling yet resolute gesture. "I name you failure. I name you regret. But you do not own me anymore." As each name fell from his lips, the shadow began to disintegrate, each syllable breaking down its formidable edges. The darkness spiraled, unraveling before him, and with it, the fears that once held him captive began to wane, but just as the figure started to dissolve, a piercing laughter reverberated from deep within the shadows. A voice, familiar yet tainted, floated toward him. "You think you've won, Thomas? There's a truth far beyond this battle. One you're not prepared to face." The tendrils of shadow began to coalesce once more, teasingly promising something darker loomed just beneath the surface of his hard-won victory. "Wait. What do you mean?" he shouted, dread blossoming in his chest. What other truths lay hidden in the darkness? And could he truly withstand them? Thomas felt the ground shift beneath him as the laughter echoed in the chasms of his mind, jagged and sinister. The air thickened with smoke, obscuring his vision, and he found himself grappling with panic. Could he truly confront whatever horror awaited him just beyond the flickering shadows? "Face your truth," the voice persisted, twisting in the twilight. "Face your own darkness." His heart pounded against his ribcage like a caged animal. Each thud was a reminder of the cost of his cowardice, the mistakes he still carried like lead in his pockets. "I'm done hiding," he proclaimed, though doubt clawed at the edges of his confidence. "Show me what you mean." The thick darkness coiled around him, closing in tighter, nearly suffocating him. Tendrils writhed and twisted, forming new shapes, phantoms of the past. Faces he recognized one moment, then forgot the next, flashed before him in a haunting parade of disappointment and betrayal. "Remember them," the entity crooned, its tone dripping with cruelty. "Remember how you let them down." Thomas clenched his fists. He had let his loved ones down. He had given in to fear while they believed in him. But the anger sparked something deeper, the realization that their belief was a light through the dark. He wouldn't allow shadows to define him. "Enough!" he shouted, the echo vibrating against the walls of his mind. "You don't own my past. You don't define my future." Suddenly, the shadows shivered and then began to dissolve around him, evaporating like morning mist. The faces faded, but not without leaving their mark. The residual pain of his choices lingered, reminding him of the intensity of the battle waging within, but that was just the beginning. The air crackled with an unnatural energy, and he felt the ground beneath him shift violently. A new chasm formed, a great fissure yawning wide, revealing the molten core of his fears. It oozed and bubbled, seething with the guilt and sadness buried deep inside him. "Can you feel it?" the figure taunted, eyes blazing like wildfire. "Bleak despair waits just beneath the surface. Are you ready to plunge into that abyss?" Thomas's breath quickened, dread filled his chest until it threatened to burst. Yet amid that terror, a flickering flame of hope persisted in his heart. It reminded him that he had faced darkness before. Breathing through the rising tide of confusion, he called out to the stories that had always brought him strength. "I am not afraid. I will go deeper if it means I find the truth." With that proclamation, he stepped toward the edge, each step echoing in the vast expanse of the void. The air was heavy with anticipation, thumping like a drum beat against his resolve. And without warning, an unseen force jerked him forward, thrusting him into the turbulent darkness that he sank like a stone into the chasm, the fire of his fears swirling around him, a kaleidoscope of anguish, shame, and loss. What awaited him at the bottom? Would he drown in dismay, or could he transform this pain into power? In that chaotic whirlwind, a bright glimmer flickered in the distance. It danced like a star, beckoning him closer, driving away the suffocating shadows. But as he reached for that light, a powerful grip held him back, not letting go. "Foolish boy!" the entity screamed, its voice slicing through the tumult like a knife. "You think you can escape what you are? You are flawed, forever tainted." The ground beneath him erupted in fire, and Thomas's heart raced with the raw intensity of the moment. He was fighting for everything he believed in, everything he could become. With one last surge of defiance, he cried into the storm, "I will break free." The tension in the air trembled and surged, threatening to tear apart the fabric of his reality. Where would this battle lead? What truths would he uncover as he fought against the darkest parts of himself? And as the unseen forces tugged him deeper into chaos, the fading light whispered, "This is just the beginning. What lies beneath will test you beyond measure." The darkness engulfed him, a suffocating shroud where whispers twisted and curled like vines around his throat. The fiery depths churned beneath him, feeding on his fear, igniting an inferno of memories long buried. Here, doubt clung like a second skin, pulling him down. Thomas fought against the weight, his fists clenched. The glimmer of light was still there, flickering just out of reach. It was more than just illumination, it was a promise, a beacon of everything he had been searching for. But the grip that held him was relentless, an invisible force that dragged him toward the molten core of his tumult. Burnt memories scalded his mind, pushing him back into a vortex of despair. "No!" he shouted again, voice trembling but fierce. Each word echoed through the void, igniting a spark within him. "I will confront this. I will face my past." The grip wavered. For a moment, he felt the heat lessening. Yet the shadows retaliated, whispering haunting truths that punctured the veil of his courage. "You're nothing without your failures. Just a wisp of smoke in the wind." The flames surged from below, licking at him, taunting him, daring him to succumb to their embrace. He could almost see the faces of those he thought he'd disappointed, the friends he'd let down, the loves he'd lost, and the potential he'd buried. But he had to remember their smiles, the warmth of trust they had once offered him. With a deep breath, he steadied himself, calling forth the memories that anchored him. He thought of Emily, her laughter like music in the shadows, and how she believed he could be more than his fears. He thought of his mother, her steadfast faith in him even when he doubted himself. Those flickers of love became his armor against this assault. "I won't let you use my past against me," Thomas shouted, rage coursing through him, transforming his fear into raw power. The flames roiled in protest, but he pushed back, surging forward again, pulling himself closer to the light. Suddenly, the darkness erupted in a cacophony of screams, his screams. The shadows swirled violently, morphing into monstrous forms that danced just beyond his vision, feeding off each pulse of panic. "Look at what you've become, Thomas!" a voice shrieked, morphing into the likeness of his own reflection, twisted and vile. "You are weak, a coward hiding behind false hopes." Each feigned accusation ignited another flare of anger within him. He fought against the tide, fists now swinging, searching for that shimmering glimmer. "No! You are not my truth!" he roared, adrenaline surging. The darkness flickered, momentarily diminished by his resolution. Thomas lunged once more, reaching out for that beacon of light, and to his shock, he felt the warmth of its glow wash over his fingertips. It pulsed gently, urging him closer, promising freedom, but the entity bellowed, a storm of fury rising. The ground shifted violently under him, spitting fire and ash. "You think you can just walk away? You have so much more to answer for." As he gripped the light tighter, he felt a surge of energy ripple through him, a connection to something greater. Pain morphed into strength, fear into passion. Yet, the abyss still seethed with rage, churning up the ghosts he tried to escape. "Join me, Thomas," the entity hissed. "Embrace your darkness or perish in the light of your delusions." With a roar that resounded through the chasm, Thomas pulled against the pull of despair. He wouldn't let it consume him. The moment felt electrifying, filled with an urgent clarity. "What is my truth?" he shouted defiantly, heart racing. "What will I become?" He felt the energy of the light morphing around him, shifting as though anticipating his next move. And as he embraced the warmth, that question lingered heavily in the air, begging for an answer: what awaited him on the other side of that light? Would he rise, transformed, or would he fall victim to the shadows once more? The light bore down on him, a radiant force filled with warmth that fought against the encroaching darkness. It whispered promises of hope, urging him to lean into its embrace. He felt drawn, no longer just a flicker but a blazing sun, igniting courage within. But the shadows roared back, the presence swirling around him in a tempest of anger and despair, doing everything to pull him into its suffocating depths. "Can you really face what you've done?" the entity taunted, its voice a serpentine hiss. "You're not worthy of this light, Thomas. How many lives have you wrecked? How many dreams have you extinguished?" Each word struck like a dagger, twisting in his heart. Ghosts of the past unfurled before him, faces etched with disappointment, memories washed in storms of regret. They danced in a grotesque parade, mocking him, pulling him beneath the surface where all hope seemed lost. Desperation surged through him, pumping adrenaline straight to his core. "These are not my truths. They don't define me," Thomas shouted, his voice raw. He gasped, feeling the heat of recognition, the warmth of the light intertwining with the shadows battling in his mind. He didn't want to sink, he wanted to soar. As if sensing his determination, the light pulsed brighter. In that moment, doubts scattered like leaves in a fierce wind. "You have the power." It beckoned. Memories of laughter, of love, of triumph filled the space, intertwining with the very essence of his being, but the shadows surged, their reach deeper and darker. "You think you're worthy? You're nothing without your sins." A cold, chilling laughter echoed, reverberating through the chasm, wrapping around him as it pushed him back into his haunted past. But among those hauntings, he recalled a moment the last time he had looked into Emily's eyes. The spark of possibility she saw in him, the faith she had offered even when he felt most broken. With that vision, he found clarity. "You're wrong," Thomas bellowed, the steadiness in his voice igniting anew. "My past might be filled with mistakes, but they've led me here. They've brought me strength." There was a pause, a sharp intake of silence, where time froze. In that silent heartbeat, the shadows recoiled, their faces shifting in confusion. Thomas took that opening, thrusting himself toward the light, reaching with everything he had, his fingers grasping for freedom. The warmth enveloped him, a surge of energy coursing through his veins, illuminating the dark spaces. He felt it fill him, igniting the fragments of his soul he had thought lost. Suddenly, the shadows screamed an unholy chorus of rage and despair. "You will pay for this defiance. You cannot escape." But their voices began to fade, the light blazing with unnatural intensity. He was not just a shape struggling in the dark, he was a luminary emerging from sorrow. For the first time, he let the warmth guide him, dismantling the ghostly fears that once claimed his heart. He could feel it, the truth pulsing in his chest. "What is my destiny?" he yelled, raw emotion coursing through him, vibrant and alive. The light responded, its warmth beckoning, urging him onward. As his feet fell away from the burning ground, it felt like he was suspended in a moment both terrifying and exhilarating. He could hear whispers morphing into cries, and it struck him, what if this wasn't just about confronting the darkness? What if the real struggle lay in discovering the powerful truth of his own making? The chasm was closing, the shadows retreating. But in that fleeting space, he sensed something lurking behind the radiant glow. A shadow deeper than any he had faced before, a question that pierced through. Who is waiting beyond the light? A chilling realization coursed through him, strong and relentless. Would he be brave enough to see what lay ahead? Or would he find himself once again succumbing to the very darkness he fought to escape? The light surged around Thomas as he steadied himself, a cocoon of warmth enveloping him. His breath quickened, each heartbeat echoing in the vastness as the shadows retreated into the corners of his mind. But he was not alone. Beyond the embrace of the light, an unseen presence loomed, potent and unspeakable. A shiver coursed through his spine. "Who waits for me?" he murmured, voice barely more than a whisper, yet it danced in the air like a summoning cry, daring whatever lay ahead to show itself. The glow began to flicker, and with it, Thomas felt a wave of trepidation wash over him. He was no longer just grappling with the darkness of his past but standing at the precipice of something much more profound. Behind the veil of brilliance, looming shadows whispered promises. They beckoned to him, their voices now softer, yet dripping with false sincerity. "Join us, Thomas. We are part of you. You cannot escape what you are." Clenching his fists, he tried to silence them. "I'm not that person anymore," he yelled, but doubt seeped into his resolve. He fought hard to rise from the depths, yet those memories hung thick around him like smoke, heavy and suffocating. The darkness, sensing his wavering spirit, surged forward. "You think you're worthy of redemption? Worthy of this light?" It seethed. "What about your failures? What about the lives you've shattered?" With each word, the fragments of his past came rushing back, the sting of betrayal, the weight of despair, the faces he'd failed to protect. They pressed in, relentless. Thomas staggered, grappling for breath, heart pounding in his chest like a drum of war. "No. I can't crumble now," he forced out, digging deep for the courage he felt flickering close by, the memory of Emily's unwavering belief in him. He focused on her smile, the way her eyes sparkled as she told him he could be more than his mistakes. That glimmer of hope fueled him. "Just tell me what comes next," he shouted into the void, his voice ringing clear this time, filled with a passion that resonated deep within. The laughter from the shadows transformed into a low growl, a rumble that vibrated through the ground. "What you seek is darkness," it hissed, "and you will never escape your sins." In that moment, the shadow shifted, revealing a figure cloaked in deep indigo. Like a puppet master, it seemed to manipulate the very fabric of the light. As it stepped closer, Thomas could make out its features. The stranger's face was twisted, marked by lines of anguish and hatred. Thomas's heart raced. "Who are you?" he cried, bracing himself for a confrontation. "A reflection," it whispered, its voice dripping with scorn. "I am everything you thought you buried. I am the choices that carved you." Suddenly, memories flooded his mind, a floodgate opened. Each regret, each scar he bore, were they truly his? Or had he allowed himself to be defined by them? The air thickened, electric with tension, the weight of his truth colliding with the revelations swirling around him. "Face me," he urged, pulling his shoulders back, standing tall. "I'm done hiding." But the figure just laughed, the sound echoing ominously. "Then let us begin your trial." With a surge of pain and fury, Thomas felt himself standing on a precipice, a battle far more dangerous than he ever imagined. As reality shifted around him, he understood. The fight was only starting, and this time, it was not about escaping the darkness, but rather confronting the very essence of who he was. "Are you ready to learn the price of your salvation?" The entity taunted, shadows swirling like a storm. A flicker of fear ignited in Thomas's chest, a question now burning in his mind. What would he sacrifice to uncover the truth waiting beyond the light? The shadows danced wildly around Thomas as the weight of the entity's question pressed in. He could almost feel the darkness closing in, its cold fingers caressing his skin like a sickly promise. But beyond that chilling grasp, the light still flickered, barely, yet omnipresent, a stubborn reminder of what was possible. What price? He managed to breathe, the pulse of fear thrumming in his ears. What does that even mean? The figure moved closer, suffocating Thomas with its presence. To confront your reality means confronting your deepest flaws. You'll have to look into the abyss and embrace the darkness that defines you. Thomas felt a shudder run through his core. The shadows twisted around him, writhing like serpents hungry for despair. Yet, as he stood wrapped in uncertainty, he felt something shift inside him, a flicker of resolve sparking against despair. Wasn't he the path he had been walking, about confronting his truths all along? "Let us begin then," he said, his voice surging with newfound determination. "Show me what I've hidden." The shadow smirked, a wicked grin bending its features. "Oh, Thomas. You might regret asking for this journey." Suddenly, the darkness expanded, and Thomas was engulfed in a torrential storm of memories, his life played out like a film reel spinning too fast to process. He saw every time he had faltered, lies told, moments escaped, and promises broken. Faces of those he once loved flickered before him, their disappointment like weights anchoring him down into the murky depths, but amidst those painful pinpricks of past choices, the warmth of light illuminated touches of grace, moments of kindness, laughter shared, small victories that reminded him of who he could be. They merged with the shadows, intertwining, and he felt his chest tighten, a lump forming in his throat as bittersweet memories washed over him. "Do you see?" The entity's voice cut through the tumultuous waves of thought, sinister yet somehow familiar. "This is what you are, who you'll always be. Forever marked by your missteps." Thomas shook his head. "No. I'm not defined by my past." But self-doubt crept in like a thief in the night. Was this true? In his feeble thoughts, he thought of Emily. Her belief in him had been so palpable, so unyielding. It fanned the flames of his resolve. "You're wrong. You think you can escape?" The shadow sneered, narrowing its gaze. "You want redemption? You'll have to sacrifice the part of you that still clings to those memories." An unrelenting dread washed over Thomas. "What will I lose?" "Your fears hold you close. They define your existence. Can you cast them aside?" The ground trembled beneath him, shadows threatening to drag him into despair. He thought of the future he wished to hold, the life he could share, the love that would fill the gaps his vulnerabilities had carved. It was then he realized the greatest fear wasn't the darkness, it was acknowledging the light within. With every ounce of strength, he took a step forward, those haunting faces lingering still. "What I choose to carry, this is my truth. I will not let the shadows dictate who I am." The entity scorned him, a torrent of rage erupting. "Fool! You cannot defy your nature. You will pay the price of your salvation." The air pulsed with the weight of possibilities, wisps of dark smoke curling menacingly around him. But from the depths of his heart, he felt a warm surge of fierce hope igniting within. He wouldn't flee from his truth, he would embrace it, scars and all. "I am more than my failures. I am my choices, my courage, the love I still have to give," he shouted, voice rising defiantly. "I will not let you break me." As those words left his lips, the shadows shrieked, retreating in a cacophony of bitterness. The light around him flared up fiercely, a radiant shield against the encroaching darkness. "Face what lies within, Thomas." It was a voice among the turmoil, echoing warmth and familiarity. The light swirled around him, revealing a path, a beacon, guiding him deeper into his own soul. Feeling the solid ground beneath him, Thomas pressed on, unwavering. Each step brought forth warmth, the cocoon of light illuminating the deep recesses of his heart. "I choose to carry hope, not shame. I choose to live for joy." Every murky memory that once shackled him began to dissolve as he stepped closer, the shadows dissipating into mist, unable to withstand the brightness that flowed from his very essence. As he broke through the veil of uncertainty, a new truth embraced him, a profound acceptance of his journey. He felt the whispers of doubt, anger, pain receding, replaced by a renewed self-awareness ready to welcome the future, and as Thomas emerged, he joined the light, the colors of possibility dancing around him like a mesmerizing aura. He had surrendered to his truths, reshaping the very darkness that once haunted him. Here, cloaked in self-acceptance, he stood ready for whatever would come next. Thomas had faced his fears. He was no longer the timid gardener merely tending roses, he had become a man who understood who he was, flaws and all. With a final breath, he whispered out into the night, "I am ready for my destiny." And the shadows, sensing their defeat, melted into a distant memory, a reminder of the battle fought and won. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.